A fighter trains with the best and wins with a KO. Kelly Orchard's podcast for successful badassery. Certifying badasses, one podcast at a time. Fear is the #1 obstacle to success. Let's flip the format on your fear.
That's right. Hey, badass. That is Badass Bobby Ocean and Badass You, who just tuned into the podcast for successful badassery. That is right. We are over here flipping the format on your fear. And it's been quite a week already, and it's only Wednesday. Yeah, I gotta say, a lot of interesting things are happening. But the first thing I wanted to do today is talk about that picture that you see on my, on the podcast today. That is a macrame masterpiece, and it started out as an inspirational thought that I had when I moved over here into Michelle's place. I've shown pictures of my office in different posts and things here, and for me, the way that I looked at how I was going to design my new canvas, my space, I wanted it to be very personal. But of course, I can't put a whole lot of personal stuff in when I'm working with psychotherapy clients, right? It's about them. So I wanted to, but I do my podcast here, and I write in here, and I do a whole lot of other things in my office. So I wanted to make sure that I created a space that was comfortable, therapeutic, but also productive, and a little bit serene. When you walk in, it feels like a big hug. So I have a big, huge picture of Sedona on the wall. And, then I have some badass stuff. I have my diplomas, my credentials, and the whatnot that you're supposed to have in your office. But there was one piece of my office space wall that I left blank deliberately, and that's above the couch, the therapy couch. Now, why did I leave that blank? Well, first of all, the office is only 12 by 12, so the Sedona picture pretty much takes up the entire, well, it does, take up one entire wall. When you first walk into my office, it's the first thing you see is the red rocks of Sedona, how peaceful and serene and transformative. Well, it is for me, and every client that's walked in or everyone's walked in my office goes, man, this is nice. So, but the wall above my couch is what I look at all the time, right? It's above the head of my client. So I wanted to make sure that it was pleasant to look at, but not contradictory to the Sedona picture, not too obnoxious or overwhelming, but complementary. And so I have a client who does macrame, and it's a therapeutic activity. So I commissioned my client. I said, hey, how about you make me a macrame wall hanging for above the couch? Exuberant. Yes, okay. But I want it to be made with a walking stick that I bring home from Sedona. I want to start there. And so that started our discussion. But that was months ago, back in June, when I first moved into my office and I was settling in, and I knew kind of had an idea now what I want on that wall. But it took me until October to get to Sedona. So, I've told a little bit of the story about the Manzanita branch. So I went to Sedona last in October with a group of friends, and we went on a hike, and the hike was to a location called Mystic Vista. Beautiful views, lots of energy. I always feel it when I go to Sedona. It's the tour guide that we had on that one particular trip said Sedona either calls you back or spits you out. And I can understand that. So for me, it calls me back. And so I knew that I was on a mission to find this walking stick for this project for my office. But what we found was a very unique and unique shaped branch. And I brought it home, not knowing exactly what it was. Started to learn what it was, and it's basically a manzanita branch. I didn't know that. And then I learned that manzanita in Spanish means little apple. Well, that just started me off on a whole new a concept and inspiration for this wall hanging. So what you see in that picture is the result of several months of work, inspiration, talking about, adding some sentimental pieces, and then bringing it here. And the entire process also resulted in, when the client was finished with the project and it was time to bring it into my office, somebody was here to actually help hang it while my client and I had a session at the same time. So my client was actually able to not only work on the project, spend time in this office, but be able to be also responsible to help getting it hung. And then the first client to have a session sitting under the couch or under the project that they just worked on. Very badass. Now, I do have some sentimental pieces in this project, and for what it's going to do for me. And I've been able to utilize this as many metaphors throughout the last 90 days or so, because there's so many different, we get knotted up and maybe we don't know the direction, or maybe we look at our life and how it's coming along, and some of this pattern is okay, but I don't like this one. So I'm going to massage these knots out of it, and I'm going to shift it a little bit, and I'm going to kind of make a change. And so these are some of the things that we have been talking about. And then she comes and she's been inspired by some new revelation that she's had. And is this okay if I do this? And I think I want to add that. And it turned out that the items that she's talking about wanting to implement and complete this project, I actually have in my possession. And then they turn out to be very sentimental items that I'm handing her. So yes, it was a process. But isn't life? But I just talked about that a few weeks ago. Life and your mental health and improvements is a process. And right now we are in a state of significant unknowns. That's what we're afraid of. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what the next thing is going to be that's going to set us back again. And I am getting a lot of clients who are anxious. And so I wanted to share this whole, I call it the Macrame Masterpiece. It's the Manzanita Macrame Masterpiece with healing crystals, sentimental pieces, and inspiration. That's what it is, and it's beautiful, better than I could have imagined. And so, life can be that way too. It's a tapestry. It's a journey of inspiration and sentimental moments that we take in, and that's what I do with the Badass certification classes. Let's take those sentimental, happy, warm moments. Let's attach them to a song. And then let's remember those. And that's part of the heart math process and positive psychology. In order for us to get through this tunnel that we all are in, sort of together, not really, but yes, we're all in. There is no answer at the end of this tunnel yet. We don't know. We have to practice some skills that will allow us to make that shift in our mindset. I do a word of the day with a lot of my clients. I do my own, not word of the day, word of the year. Word of the year for me is receive. And that could go either way, right? It really could. But, it is the word that I'm focused on this year. So when I start my day, it's like, so what do I need to prepare to receive today? And sometimes I need to receive by asking for help or asking for assistance. That's one of the hardest things for anybody to do, is ask for help. One of my clients the word is patience. And man, time is really testing this person's patience. I've also got simplify. Somebody just wants to simplify their life because it's just been complicated for so long. Well, when you get a word, when you have your word for the year that you are focusing on, whether it's simplify or patience or receive or priorities or whatever word is coming at you consistently, some is faith, others is worth. Then ask yourself that question every morning. Make it a habit. How can I apply this word to my day? I promise you it'll make all the difference, because at the end of the day, if you write it down, that's why I love journaling. Write it down in the morning. How can I apply my worth today? Or what can I expect to receive today? Or what do I need to receive today? And let me be open to seeing that. This is like a heart-centered, focused work that you do in your life. And then at the end of the day, after you've had some interesting things because you're focusing on that word, write down what happened that day. You'll start to see results. And after a year, your life will be different than it is today. Heck, it won't even take a year to get there, but it is a process. But here I do have a couple of things. Okay, so last week I sent out, it's like, I wanted to invite you to be badass with me, and I still want to invite you to be badass with me as well. And so it was download my badass. Let's get started with the badass habits. And when you download them, they're totally free. Just get on my email list, go to my website. You click right there on the website. It'll take you right to the forum to grab and snag the Badass Habits ebook. And also, if you check the box, I'll send you a License to be Badass sticker. That's right, the sticker of the logo, License to be Badass. I've got tons of them, and I'm trying to get them out there. So I had several responses, and a lot of responses, and it was really fun because I gave you an invitation to be badass, and I sent these stickers as far as Pago Pago, American Samoa. And I sent some to Alaska, Missouri, and Wyoming. If you don't have your badass sticker, you better get one now. And all you got to do is just go to my website. Mr. Ocean invites you at the end of the podcast to snag your Badass Habits ebook, and I'll send you a sticker too. Let's start representing. Everybody needs to get licensed to be badass, because being badass in 2022 is not going to be enough. You got to get licensed. So I do have a couple of articles I wanted to share with you. Because they're very, very timely. And this one's from Psychology Today. I will put the link in the show notes, but it's written by, let me see, I got to scroll up here. Rodney Luster, PhD. And it just came out the other day. Basically it's like, do you feel like you're giving up? You're challenging the desire to mentally check out. Man, that is a big, big topic this week. So, the mechanics behind persistent stress and how we can modify the moment. I teach this a lot. I'm glad to have somebody else writing an article that I can quote. So it's just not all about me. But, it's like, so the key points of this article are, you've got to endure the persistent stressors, or enduring it, and persistent stressors can impact our lives, creating fatigue and a sense of loss of control. And when stress persists, it becomes easier to devolve into exaggerated and negative evaluations of our situation. So consider a leader whose composure and stamina under stress are admirable. You possess such abilities as well. These are skills that I personally, myself, this is me talking, have developed over the course of my career. I was already a leader before I became a psychotherapist. I was in leadership, owning and operating the family radio stations. And, I had my first education, my first degree is in social science with an emphasis in organizational leadership. And there is a lot of stress that goes on to leaders. So if you have one that's very composed, you might want to try to mirror them a little bit. Chinese philosopher from the late 4th century BC espoused the following thought: flow with whatever may happen and let your mind be free. Stay centered by accepting whatever you are doing. This is the ultimate. In many ways, the philosopher was illustrating the potential of letting go of our will and desire to react to events emotionally and to simply accept and flow through them. I talk about that in my book, Heart Lessons, in the chapter Lessons in Surrendering. It's interesting. I think later on in this article, he talks about The Wizard of Oz. So that's why I was attracted to this article. So, basically, the article goes on to say that, when people give up during any persistent adverse experience, life does march on, and there are many daily tasks that entail simply living alongside it. This requires a sense of control and mental effort to maintain. So here, mental fatigue can set in and eclipse our motivation to fight the good fight. The outcome of fatigue is currently observed in healthcare as burnout. Fatigue also shows up as cynicism, sarcasm, compassion fatigue, and lack of efficacy, and not doing a good job or doubting your own ability to sustain. Humans have the potential to plan and execute on things they have never encountered before. For instance, wearing a mask, using hand sanitizer, social distancing, and so forth. This further explains that include the caretaking of a family member or working through a major life transitions. Now listen, research has found that acute and lasting stressors tend to impact the lateral habenaya, part of your brain. I'm sorry, I can't even pronounce that. So this results in an anhedonic behaviors. That's like low mood constantly, where your activities feel pointless, useless. All right. Perception and rules of our internal kingdom. I love this because I use the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy in my book, Heart Lessons, a lot. So in the movie, Dorothy and her companions eventually enter the Great Oz, or encounter the Great Oz, and he's larger than life, disembodied face with a commanding voice. However, later they discover that Oz is simply an ordinary man behind a curtain with all this gadgets designed to manage others' perceptions of him. Dorothy and her friends see that not everything is exactly as it appears to be. So our minds similarly may read situations like words on a page at face value without any deeper attention to the context. And as we tire of the day-to-day challenges, it becomes easier to slowly devolve into more exaggerated and negative evaluations of our situations. So perception, as it relates to what we do, what we engage in daily, and how the world requires daily caretaking, psychological calibration, and fine-tuning. That's what I do here. We flip the format on that program that is ingrained in your brain. Now, this article goes on to talking about other negative perceptions and refreezing healthier outlooks. I love this radical acceptance, and unfreezing your brain. These are all practices that are used in psychotherapy. I wanted to share this article with you. I'll put the notes in the show or link in the show notes. I'm having a hard time keeping my thoughts straight because I have another article to share with you. So this one came from a news called theconversation.com. Something different. Languishing. What to do if you're feeling restless, apathetic, or empty. This is a big topic too that I've been encountering, and this article was written just a couple of weeks ago, and it's in the health category of the conversation. I'll put the link in the show notes. So, have you been feeling restless, apathetic, or even emotionally empty since the pandemic began? You might be languishing. Languishing is described as an emotional state of limbo, aimlessness, and low mood, which can last for a long time. But while languishing itself isn't considered a mental health disorder, it could ultimately lead to anxiety or depression. Many people have experienced or may still be experiencing languishing without really even knowing what it is or why they're feeling that way. In fact, an internal study which looked at data from participants in 78 different countries between April and June of 2020 found that 10% of people experienced languishing during the pandemic. So what is languishing versus depression? Languishing can be a precursor for depression or exist alongside depression. But while two may share some similarities, they also differ in many ways, mainly in how the symptoms present themselves. Depression can be characterized by emotional, mental, behavioral, and physiological symptoms, including fatigue, sleeping too much or too little, weight loss of gain, negative thoughts, negative feelings, or suicidal thoughts. Languishing shares some of the symptoms with depression, such as having negative emotions, but it's also characterized by not feeling in control of your life, feeling like you aren't able to grow or change, and not engaging with your community, including your family or friends. So though languishing isn't considered a mental health disorder, it can be challenging to bear and maybe even more difficult than experiencing depression for some. So what can you do to get better? To understand how to reduce languishing, it's important to understand the difference between languishers and flourishers, people who experience high levels of mental health. We know from previous research that flourishers are 7 times more likely to experience depression than people with lower levels of well-being, such as languishers. Flourishing is even shown to protect against depression. While both languishers and flourishers value having meaning in their life, goals, and relationships, languishers are more self-oriented, wanting to find their own meaning and improve their own happiness. Flourishers, on the other hand, are more focused on others and contributing to the greater good. So we don't know if it's because languishers aren't well that they become more self-focused, or if it's because of their self-focus that they experience languishing. But we do know that it's taking a lesson from flourishers can help people who are languishing improve their well-being. So there's some tips. Take action. Do some performing acts of kindness, volunteering, other techniques. I would say continue listening to the podcast for successful badassery. I'm always giving you tips on how to pull yourself out of the doldrums or the languishing. All right. So this article, like I said, is from The Conversation, and I will put the link in the show notes because I really want you to have that. Now, listen, it is Wednesday Wisdom, and I've got some new Mustang Monday episodes coming up for you. Yes, I do. I've got Nicole Albrecht from Elite Tax Partners. New business for her, not a new field, but a new business for her. And we also talk about something near and dear to her heart. and it's all about single moms. So tune in on Monday for Mustang Monday. I'm also working on some very interesting new episodes as well. Now that I got a new battery and it's a new year and the holidays are over, I am able and willing to get the Mustang out on the road and record some fresh episodes. So be sure to come back on Monday for Mustang Monday. But if you like the videos, which I definitely would encourage, you can see them on my YouTube channel, or I publish them on all the other social media platforms. One more thing. Get your badass sticker, all right? Please, you need it. So if you don't have one on your car, on your backpack, on your laptop, on your phone, whatever, let people know that you are badass and that you're working on it. So thanks for joining me. All you got to do to get the sticker is snag your Badass Habits ebook. It means it's totally free, and I will send you a sticker. And you know what? It is actually me that puts them in the mail and signs a card and addresses your name on it. And when I address the envelope, it says badass with your name. So it's kind of fun to get that in the mail even. It's like, hey, badass. I'm telling you, being called badass never, ever, ever gets old. Take it away, Mr. Ocean.
You're kind of like a radio station, playing good stuff or negative stuff. Choose positive and turn up the volume, badass. Snag your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensed2bebadass.com.